You're now listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.
Hello, Rockies. This is Sarah Jane Maroney, your host for Engage the Rockies, your go-to podcast concerning local and state issues for Colorado. Welcome to the second week of February in 2025. Congressman Jeff Crank participated in a ride-along with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. He joined them deputies on Saturday, the 8th of February, for a ride-along to learn what the challenges are for members of law enforcement as they're seeking to work within the community. And the El Paso County Sheriff put out on Facebook, quote, "Thank you, Congressman, for taking time out of your day to learn more about our agency, our mission, and our commitment to the citizens of El Paso County," end quote. And then Congressman Crank thanked them for their efforts to keep the community safe. And you'll recall there is a bill coming before the legislature to ensure that our local law enforcements are able to adhere to federal law by working with ICE. United Airlines has sent another signal about a potential move from corporate headquarters from Chicago to Denver. In a new filing with the city of Denver, United said that they may eventually build more than 1 million square feet of office to accommodate more than 6,000 employees on land that it purchased in 2023 near the Denver airport. However, the airline says that this is pilot training and says it offers flexibility for the future. But it didn't say that this is going to be imminent. Quote, this is United Airlines spokesman Pat Mullane. "The land provides United with future options of which there are no set plans beyond using the land to expand our flight training center capabilities," end quote. So they've downplayed this when the deal was first launched or made aware of we've been made aware of it in January 2024. And then they said at that point that it was not imminent, but they have filed a request in Chicago to add 6 more gates to their O'Hare following, and Chicago is their largest hub, followed by Denver and Houston. So remains to be seen what they're going to be doing besides the Flight Training Center. You'll be aware that King Soopers are striking. It has not reached Colorado Springs yet. However, some Pueblo stores have joined the Denver stores in striking. And it is the United Food and Commercial Workers Local Union number 7 initiated a 2-week strike of more than 10,000 unionized workers alleging unfair labor practices. And King Soopers has actually filed a lawsuit against the union stating that it is a prioritization, quote, out of state special interests over the hardworking people who call this state home, end quote. And that was filed in U.S. District Court on Friday. What I found somewhat interesting about this is that Senator Hickenlooper visited the workers on the picket line and joined them, advocating, quote, for a fair agreement and better working conditions, end quote, as did State Attorney General Phil Weiser, who is running for governor. He also stopped on the picket lines to support the workers against a harmful merger. Lawmakers in Colorado have reversed course on investigations funding the Cold Case Project after an emotional plea by Representative Jenny Wilford. So they have an integrated cold case project and they re-examine cases. And this underlies a issue that we've talked about here before with a former forensic scientist who allegedly mishandled cases. And among the 1,407 rape kits awaiting test by the CBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, is one that was an alleged assault to the Colorado State Representative Jenny Wilford in North Glen last year. She was quite emotional when she presented this, understandably, and she is asking that the House, she persuaded House lawmakers Wednesday to allow the investigation unit to roll over the remaining $3 million of 2024 to 2025 funds for DNA testing into 2025 and 2026. And this was a bill that was introduced last week, Senate Bill 105, to remove CBI's authority to use its remaining $3 million. And so they've changed this actually now they are going to be able to use the money to review these cases. She talked about not being on the Joint Budget Committee and did acknowledge that they certainly care about victims and survivors, but are wanting to make sure that the money is well spent. And the JBC twice has lost the rollover authority battle in terms of saying, no, we don't want the money to roll over, and the Senate and House saying, yes, they do. She talked about walking through a daily nightmare of a cloud following her and reminds her that she doesn't have answers or justice, which would be the case for anyone who is waiting their review. But it is a fiscal question in terms of what the Joint Budget Committee wants to do with the money. And she offered the amendment not because the Colorado Bureau of Investigation deserves it, but because it ensures that the funds to contract with third party to get the kits tested. And she stated that her amendment required more transparency from CBI, where they would then have to report on the number of kits completed in the prior 30 days and how long it's taking to reach the 90-day turnaround. Continuing on with the Colorado legislature, Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis has responded to her ethics complaints, and it doesn't seem that these answers have been very satisfactory. Last week, the committee released a dozen documents complaining about her. She was reelected to her second term, and which would be final term, should be term limited last November. It was a 14-page response by the senator in terms of the behavior that she was accused of going back to at least 2022. And 5 former legislative aides are named in the documents, but the first batch of documents is focused primarily on 2 aides. And the timeline begins with those around December of 2023, extending through November 15th of 2024. But there is also a second timeline that goes all the way back to 2022. The written statements say mismanagement of aides in her office is a pattern. The senator's behavior is, quote, inappropriate and unacceptable as an elected official, especially given the lack of trust and transparency in her own office. This includes deliberately preventing junior aides from receiving sufficient training and connecting with other aides, end quote. And Ruby representative, the first aide who had formerly worked for Representative Ruby Dixon, resigned in December 2023, citing a toxic environment in the House. But he was hired by Jaquez Lewis that same month, even though he'd heard warnings about that it wasn't a conducive environment. He then asked to sign an NDA moments after arriving for his first day in her office, and the General Assembly outlawed such agreements as of 2023. The committee's response basically said that they didn't feel she addressed those concerns, talking about the changes that she was going to make. Rather, her opening statement pointed to full distortions and falsehoods should never have been assigned to an ethics committee. And yet, Senator Dylan Roberts from Frisco noted that it was actually Jaquez Lewis who asked for the ethics investigation in order to defend herself and explain that she wasn't responsible for these issues, and that the appearing shift from complaint to being not real, rather now to an artificial way for PWG to seek more rights and pay, and then flip to get into the specifics on the complaints. It's hard to tell which direction she's going in, Roberts said. A couple of other senators chimed in here. It doesn't give us any indication of what their response will be or how they will be going forward. And those are the top stories for the second week of February in 2025. Thanks for joining us. Please sign up for our emails on our website, engagetherockies.com.
Thank you for listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.